everyone, and welcome to another Modern Sales Pros event. We're super excited to get started, but we'll wait for a few moments to let folks trickle in. As MSP fashion, we love to start things off with a fun little icebreaker. And I'd love to ask our panelists today, what is your go-to lunch order? We'll kick things off with Trevor.
Sure. I'll be honest, I struggle with this in a post-COVID world because as a salesperson, lunch is supposed to be with customers. And so I'm still adjusting to the idea of eating lunch alone in my little office that I built in my garage. So I don't have a very good answer for you, but I don't like it. How's that? Only for my customers.
Fair enough, fair enough. John, what about you?
I actually am really into bowls right now, bowls of any type, whether they be Mexican, Mediterranean, rice-based protein, and then some type of sauce and vegetable. So probably my go-to is this place down the street called Condados, and I get like a steak bowl similar to Chipotle. Yeah,
Very healthy and yummy.
Yeah, very
Jessica,
yummy.
What about you?
I've been on a taco kick as of late. But I'm with Trevor. I miss being out to lunch.
Ryan?
I'm going to go with sushi just because right next to our office here in London, there's an amazing sushi place that you can just run down really quickly, grab it, get back in the office in a rush, and then you don't feel like you don't have the regret of going to eating like a burger or something throughout the day. So definitely sushi.
Yeah, sushi is my go-to as well. We have a really good sushi place down the street from me, and it's fresh and easy to grab, especially when you have back-to-back meetings. But thank you all for sharing your lunch order. And for anyone who's watching us today, please let us know where you're calling in from, and also let us know what your go-to lunch order is in the chat function below. All right, so let's get started. Today, we're here to talk about maximize results in this economy, get the most of pay for performance. But before we begin, I'll say a few words about the team at Modern Sales Pros. Hi, everyone. My name is Angelica. I'm one of the community event managers at MSP. And for those of you who are not familiar, Modern Sales Pros is the world's largest and highest quality community for those in sales management, sales leadership, sales and revenue operations, and enablement, aka our Modern Sales Pros. Our mission is to create an environment for our members to answer questions they struggle to solve on their own and help them to see around corners they may not know about. We do this through our live sessions like the one you're at today. We also have an online robust forum and our quarterly summits, which we have one coming up in April. And we're starting to get back into in-person events, so stay tuned. We might come to a city near you. And quick housekeeping notes, this event is being recorded, so if you have a friend or colleague that couldn't make it, don't worry. The recording along with the key takeaways and the recording will be made available on the MSP page before the end of the day. Second, if you have a question for our lovely panelists today, please use the Q&A function at the top right-hand corner or in the chat, and we'll be sure to get them live. And this event wouldn't be made possible without our sponsor today, Captivate IQ. The Agile Commission Solutions enables companies to consistently align revenue teams with evolving business goals. Combining flexibility with ease of use, Captivate IQ offers a powerful calculation engine that saves customers time every month processing commission payouts. Leading companies like Gong rely on Captivate IQ to transform their data, build any commission plans, and motivate sales reps with real-time visibility. I'm actually going to drop their link in the chat to learn more about Captivate IQ and be sure to check them out. They're doing awesome things. Now on to our awesome sponsor or panelists today. I'm going to ask you to pass it off to Jessica, who will be moderating today's panelists, and I'll come back for closing remarks. So Jessica, take it away.
Sure. Great to meet all of you. Excited to be here today. My name is Jessica Schultz, and I'm the founder and CEO of Amplify Group. We are a go-to-market and RevOps consulting firm, and we specialize in working with B2B SaaS startups. So if you'd like to learn more, feel free to reach out. Trevor?
Great. Hi, everyone. Trevor Childers here. I head up the enterprise sales function at Captivate IQ. I've been here for about a year, but I like to say I've been in the industry selling software so long that I started selling software in boxes at the software store around the corner from me when I was a teenager. So a lot of experience here and looking forward to the discussion today. I'll pass it over to Ryan.
Thanks, Trevor. Hey, everyone. My name is Ryan O'Halloran. I'm a director of enterprise sales over here at Airwallex, focused in EMEA. I'm calling in from London. Prior to Airwallex, I was at Stripe for about 6 years, so been in kind of the fintech payments sales world for a little bit of time now. So really excited to chat with everyone. And John, I'll pass it to you.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. John Weiler here. I am a director of sales with Path Robotics. We are a artificially intelligent robotics solution focused on industrial automation. Prior to joining Path, I've been in both B2C and B2B sales and sales leadership for the past 10 plus years. I'm really excited to talk about what we're talking about this afternoon with this group. Kick it back over to Jess.
Cool. All right. So first question for the group. Of course, the panelists know what we mean by pay performance, but I think it'd be helpful for our audience if we just kind of defined it for them and let them know what the benefits of a pay performance model is. And Trevor, I know you shared some great data that your team put together. So if you want to kick us off with how you define it, that'd be great.
Sure. I'll feel a lot better about the shameless plug, learning that we present. So that'll make that a lot easier. Yeah, I mean, we talked about this before. Pay for performance can mean anything from sales reps selling software to people in the gig economy, but basically just tying in company goals back to individual contributions in a way that's going to motivate those people. One of the things that I will plug is if you do go out to the Captivate IQ website, we do have a survey that we conducted last year, which has got, I don't know how many pages in here, like 50 pages or so of data from a survey on sales compensation and what individual contributors are looking for. So things like how long they're spending looking at their compensation statements, to one of the ones that surprised me was those that are on a variable comp plan. The majority of them want to have a bigger mix of variable rather than a smaller mix. So decreasing their base and increasing their variable, which says a lot for how hard they're working, I guess.
Perfect. I'll jump in after that. So I think what's kind of important about the pay for performance topic that we're talking about today is not only incentivizing an individual's work, but also making sure that it aligns with the company's mission. I think whenever you're thinking about pay for performance, it has to make sure that there's kind of three main pillars, right? It's the individual, it's the company, but it's also the customer. And I think what's interesting is I've been in this world of fintech, and I've been lucky enough to have this alignment with the customer, both at Airwallex and Stripe, where if our customer's not making money, we're not making money, right? And so in this consumption-based model, we focus on our pay for performance being aligned with not just signing a contract, but making sure that the customer is actually going live, they're processing volume with us, they're converting funds, they're paying out globally, and then making sure that the pay for performance plans align with whatever revenue that company is bringing in. And then that makes sure that you have this kind of three-pronged approach where, you know, the founders of the company, the leadership, the company's mission is aligned with the sales reps, which is aligned with the customers, and you're all working towards a mutual goal, which I think is incredibly important for creating that positive environment.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the way that I've defined this throughout my career here is it should be clear and upfront expectations, things that people can have some control over. And when you think about pay for performance, you can tie it to activities, you can tie it to results, you can tie it to outcomes. But people need to have an understanding of what can they earn, how can they earn it, and what does that amount to in the end. And I think, you know, when I think about Path Robotics, and to hit on your point, Ryan, you know, the world's kind of changed over the last 6 months or so. And so being a part of a venture-backed robotics company, the investors, their priorities, the board, the C-suite, all of those priorities kind of shift. So you've seen some changes in variable comp as well. And to hit on what you were saying, it's not just always just account executives or directors or SDRs that are on variable comp plans. You've got sales engineers, you've got customer success teams now that are becoming very important as those changes come. And I think with the best pay for performance plans, you can look at one and you can understand, what are these people doing with their time? How should they be behaving, and how does that tie back into the enterprise value of the org? So that's what I think of when I think about pay for performance.
Awesome. And I know when we were doing our prep call, actually, John, you had some great thoughts, having experienced it yourself, but just how pay for performance evolves as well with the company's growth and maturity, and how we see, different incentives aligned with early stage startups versus later stage growth. So even economic changes aside, just the maturity and the stage of the company and the impact that has. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add about that from your own personal experience.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think so. As the priorities shift, right? So at one point in time, when you're a very early stage startup, at least from this experience, bookings were like the number one priority, right? So the comp plans reflected, let's grow at all costs. Let's get really into hyper growth. And now I don't think in a venture-backed startup, growing ever goes away, right? But maybe profitability and other things start to get added onto that list. And so that's some of what we've seen is, not just grow at any cost here and not just incentivizing bookings, but let's land and expand. Let's go deeper with the client base that we have. Let's get upsells. Let's get cross sells. Let's get customer retention. How do we incentivize that? So those are some of the things that I've seen as the company's matured from maybe say the first 10 or 20 customers to reaching over 100 customers.
Yeah, John, I think one thing you touched on that's really interesting is the land and expand and how you incentivize that. Because if you're doing a true enterprise sale, that's usually the best way in, right? It's going in through kind of a core product and expanding through the organizations and upselling to different parts. But you need to make sure you're incentivizing that as well, right? And something I faced early in my career was we were only providing, the first year of a deal. The commission structure focused on that. And that wasn't incentivizing long-term ROI for the business. And it's one of those things you have to adapt to and grow off of. But I think when you're building out these pay for performance cycles, you need to make sure that you're incentivizing the land and expand opportunities, not just the net new ones.
Yeah, they're probably management thinking that they're going to incentivize the rep to get the big deal up front since they're not going to get the follow-up deal. But most reps are like, all right, I'm just going to take this off the table and get my paycheck. So you're right; it's not really aligned that well all the time.
Exactly. It's almost the path of least resistance, right? Like if I'm a rep, I'm going to focus on where I can get the most ROI for my time because I might be working on 10, 15 deals that are taking up 90% of my time. And if I can churn through those very quickly, move on to the next, and increase my commission, I'm going to focus on that. So you need to make sure that you're incentivizing those reps to focus on long-term goals, not just short-term goals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite examples I saw too was a company that I worked with where they split the commission for expansion opportunities. So like the CS rep that identified it would get part of that commission. And then the sales rep that originally sold it would get brought back in to help close the deal. So that I think also really aligned CS and sales to work together, CS to find those opportunities, but maybe they don't have the hunt and close personality. So like bringing in the person that does have that personality to help them get it across the finish line. So I really liked that.
So CS, the sales rep closed it.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
That's cool. I'll add one thing, Jess, as you were speaking, kind of made me think of referrals and being a part of the enterprise ecosystem there that at the point of the sale, sometimes that trust and that experience with your organization might not be maturing yet. But if the customer success team handles that account in a really good way and performance trends the way that the salesperson thought it would, typically that's when you start to see a lot of referrals come in because now they know the experience themselves. And so when you have a great relationship between the two departments, it generates exponential revenue growth and everyone ends up winning. I was just thinking about that.
And it also really helps, John, with the relationship, right? You don't want the customer success or account manager kind of fighting for an extra basis point or an extra, $100,000 on an account. And so we've kind of rolled out the same thing here at Airwallex, where we've kind of taken a unique approach to almost a staged commission plan over a few years. And what that's given us is the ability for account managers to own the relationship, but anytime a new opportunity comes in, that same account executive who sold the initial deal can get grouped back in to your point earlier. And that helps kind of divide the customer success relationship from the sales relationship and keeps that AE involved in upselling new opportunities for that expansion.
Yeah.
Love it. And so organizations are having to change with the environment and with the stage, like we just talked about. So what should, I guess, in this group's perspective, or from this group's perspective, what should we be doing differently? Or what do you think people are doing well?
I could take the first round of that. And kind of piggybacking on what you said, Jess, and John as well, just focusing on the attainability of things and looking at it from the perspective of the rep. We should be incentivizing them to stretch, to do a little bit more, get a little bit outside of their comfort zone. I know we've all had experiences as reps where when we were given a spiff for the end of the quarter, it was always something that was like way outside. We're like, well, I'm never going to hit that. I'm not going to hit my number. Making sure that it's something that is legitimately a stretch for the rep and not a stretch for the business at like 3 levels up. I think that's pretty important. And piggybacking on that for a second, and this did come up in the comp survey, if you download that, the idea that given all these changes in the economy, that affects the economic situation of the rep too. So a lot of reps are looking for changes to their comp plan to reflect, if we were in an up market, now we're in a down market. The economy, my buying power per dollar was this before, and now it's this. You know, my sushi outside of my office in London was, I can't get an inexpensive lunch run, by the way. That's I lived in London. That's like could be 100 pounds a day. That's a lot. So that's going up as well. So just making sure that you're looking at it from their perspective, I think, is typically what we see a lot of people miss from.
Yeah, I'll add on here.
Trevor,
go ahead.
I was going to say with inflation, it's gone up, but it used to be a good 10-pound lunch.
That's impressive.
I was actually just going to say that here in Ohio, the sushi is not great, but it is cheap. So you have that going for you. But yeah, I would completely agree, Trevor, with what you were saying. Times have definitely changed. And so comp plans need to reflect that. Performance-based pay needs to reflect that. The behaviors that the organizations are looking for their reps to achieve is evolving. So how do we get proactive and how do we support those reps? I know in the enterprise sales cycle that we're in with Path, you've got an average contract value north of $400,000 ARR. So you've got 5 to 8 different stakeholders at any time. And I apologize if you guys hear background noise. I've got a 10-month-old here and he's apparently having a meltdown. But yeah, so the new world, right? The working from home. You've got 5 to 8 on average different stakeholders in any given deal. And you've got a sales cycle of 6 to 12 months. And there's a lot of different competing interests. And unlike, I think, 2020 or 2021, where it was, hey, we'll sign up for it. You've got CFOs scrutinizing almost every new add-on now. You've got CEOs, we're in manufacturing. So a lot of VPs of ops, different stakeholders with different priorities coming in and scrutinizing new deals. And so one of the ways that PAF supports our team is if they bring their CFO to the table, we're going to match that and we're going to bring our CFO. So there's things like that you can tweak where the organization can come and provide additional support to increase the winning probability in any deal. And the internet in many ways has democratized this whole gig economy. So the ability to do things on the side, the ability to have side hustles, and create content and then sell your own thing online. I think one of the key differentiators that an organization can do that you might not have freelancing is an example of that, where they come in and they support you. They provide you with that support. They provide you with that C-suite level interactivity to help close a deal. So that's some of the stuff that I've seen as the economy shifted.
And something to add on, Trevor, I thought you made a really good point earlier around kind of the spiffs aspect of this. And if you think about these pay for performance plans, they need to be ever evolving, right? The plan you used last year should be adapted in the coming year and so on and so forth if your company is growing in the way you want it to, right? So like you might hire a sales rep initially who's more salary based, and then you move them more commission based, and it's maybe 25% to 50% to so on and so forth. But you also need to make sure that the spiffs and incentives are aligned, and it's not just rolling those out to be like, hey, we want to offer a spiff this quarter, and you might have reps who are like, great, as soon as you roll out the spiff, I hit it, right? You want to actually make sure you're incentivizing new activities, whether it be outbound opportunity creation, whether it be in deal or in quarter closes for those opportunities, not just rolling out spiffs that might be benefiting some of the reps who were in a better position because of what they did 2 quarters ago. So that's important to keep into account as well.
The opportunity creation part is probably the most dangerous and the one that we have to have the most accuracy with as well, because we can pay people for meetings with the wrong people. We can, pay people for things that just don't actually move the needle. So that's the one we need to pay particular attention to.
Yeah, I think the spiffs, having clarity and alignment on the base comp plan and the variable comp plan, and then spiffs can be a really powerful tool on top of that. We did a month contest and saw record-breaking results, and they were in alignment with what the organization needed. And the only thing I would add to this is that I think when you're out there in today's world, you're going to see organizations that have really healthy comp plans, and the OTE numbers might be high. But to your point, Trevor, is obtainment there? Are they getting there as a team? But also spiffs just in general. If I'm a high performing sales individual and I look at two different organizations, and one I see a great OTE number, and I see that in the other organization, but they also offer spiffs, the ability to travel, the ability to win gift cards, so on and so forth. I think as an organization, you just need to be aware of that those types of environments exist, and they're going to attract high performing talent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yep. And OTs don't carry much weight if nobody's hitting it, right? Like, you need to make sure that you're actually rolling out plans that make sense for the business. And you can say the OTE is 10,000% of the base, but if nobody's going to hit that, then it's not holding much weight.
Looks great on a job posting though, right? Oh,
it does.
You make $1 million a year. Well, yeah, maybe not.
Awesome. And I know we talked a little. I know we talked about it in the prep call. I don't know if we've talked about it yet today, but just the fact that we saw a report recently that said only 40% of reps in enterprise sales are actually hitting their numbers. So very real stats to accompany the comments that we just made. And then we talked a little bit in our prep call too that I thought was really interesting about just making how companies can make compensation plans simpler so that reps actually understand what they're making, and the easier it is for them to calculate, the easier it is for them to get motivated. So I guess we'd just love to bring that topic up again and have you guys add some commentary to that.
Yeah, I could take lead on that. This is the third company that I've worked for that sells incentive compensation software. And so I've seen quite a spectrum of doing it right and doing it wrong. The thing that I find most fascinating is that the smaller the company, the more, and I won't even say complex, the more convoluted the comp plans are. Those with fewer payees just have these like crazy comp plans that nobody understands and nobody can calculate. Whereas when you get into the larger organizations, where you have to calculate it for 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 people, somebody's made those simple just so that they can calculate them. And the byproduct of that is that you can actually understand them. So that was a surprise to me when I got into this business. But reps are very simple people. I mean, like in terms of like the way that they look at things, like, all right, am I going to do this? Am I going to make money? Am I going to go make somebody else uncomfortable and make money? If I don't understand what's in front of me and how that's going to benefit my family, then I'm probably not going to do it. So simpler is better.
Yeah.
I think. Sorry, go ahead, John.
Oh no, I was gonna dogpile onto that. My dog jumped in the back here, and so it's one of those things where from my experience, because I've, like you, Trevor, I've been around with bad comp plans, middle of the road comp plans, and then really good comp plans. And the thing that I would say about the really good ones is they have a lot of clarity. They have upfront expectations, and where you're spending your time and the payoffs. And so, like, even jumping on Captivate IQ's website, I saw that sales comp calculator, and it reminded me of that. If reps can't do their own math, whether it's end of the month, whatever your sales cycle is, end of the quarter, then that's probably an indicator that it's too complex. They should be able to understand their earning potential, and they should be able to be in alignment, and there shouldn't be any surprises at the end of a quarter, right? And so that's one key thing that I would say. And being able to have alignment too. I think in the enterprise world, it's a lot of people helping that lift. It's not just an account executive. It's not just a sales engineer or an SDR or BDR, whatever the acronym is in your organization. There's marketing departments, there's finance departments, there's product, there's engineering, and it adds complexity, and it gets really simple to make things overly complex. It's really hard to make it really simple. But I think the best comp plans, like you said, they're simple, they're transparent, they're easy to understand. They don't require a lot of spreadsheets and calculations to be done. But also, I would just say from the alignment piece, marketing and all these different organizations should be working in harmony, ideally, so that their efforts are tying in and helping lift up the entire organization. So the comp plan feels achievable as well.
Yeah, I think to add to that, it's just like sometimes we as sales leaders overthink things that should be very simple, right? It's not very hard to determine what AEs and sales reps are motivated by. They're motivated by success and earnings and being able to close deals and be able to earn money, right? And so if you can lay the foundations for a successful sales organization by making sure it's simple, it's aligned, and it makes sense, then you can really allow them to go out and understand, to your point, John, is if I close this deal, I know exactly what this is bringing in for myself and for the company, rather than if I close this deal, I actually have no idea. So I can negotiate these levers in any way I want because I have no idea how it affects me. So I think a lot of times people think, well, if we make these really complex plans, we'll actually save money as an organization. When in actuality, if you make these complex plans and your sales reps don't understand what they're making, then they don't understand what they should be negotiating. And in turn, they might be leaving more on the table. So simplifying it, I think, has a lot of ROI there for the business as well.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure, too, you recognize the inspiration for going the extra mile for sales reps comes not only from the comp plan and how I'm going to make an extra $1,000 or whatever this period, but also from what everybody else is doing. So if only 40% of the sales reps are hitting their number, that demoralizes the sales team. Yeah. So let's figure out, we got one bucket of cash, as one of the guys I used to work for said, let's just make sure that we're spreading that out in a way where everyone is hitting their numbers so that they feel good about what they're doing. Putting in things like, I've worked with companies that had, windfall clauses or caps. You don't see those as much anymore, but I mean, you should have somebody that's just blowing it out, because even if there's only one person out of 1,000 that's had a 7-figure year, that's huge for everybody else, because chances are nobody else is going to do that, but it's going to inspire everybody else to do it. So they'll all work a little bit harder for it. Yeah.
Seeing people win around you is definitely an extremely encouraging and motivating event, whether you're an individual contributor or a leader. I'm a big fan. I think all of us would probably say we're big fans of not having caps. I think there's plenty of other ways that you can incentivize controlled growth, if you will, or maybe decelerate on the way down, or maybe you work with the CFO, not to get too complex here, but you figure out payback periods that make sense from a financial standpoint within the organization. I really am a big fan of not capping effort in any way, or having a salesperson ever ask, should I pull the brakes off? Because like that windmill, like Jim Collins says, it takes a while to get that momentum. And if you slow it down, it can be catastrophic down the road. A lot of the sales activities that we see are lagging indicators, right? So you have to put in that work up front. If you take the foot off the gas, you don't know what the next 60 or 90 days could look like. It could be detrimental. And so really, really good performance-based comp plans, they don't typically have those caps. And they also challenge, from what I've seen, they challenge reps to think strategically. So if you have a really good understanding of what you should be going after, and you only have so much time in a day or activities, you can start to get really strategic, and that will bubble up to what the organization's overall goals are. The only time I've seen a cap, I'll say, I've been a part of this experience, is if you're launching a new product, you're launching a new market, and it's a smaller organization or maybe even a mid-sized organization, and something just goes really wrong. I've seen C-suite come in and say, that's never going to happen again. We're going to cap that. And, not to hate on the finance people, I just typically see it led by them, because they'll look at a payback chart and be like, oh my gosh, what happened here? But yeah, that's my spiel on caps. We shouldn't have them.
I've worked for companies that have had 2 comp plans per year, and your second comp plan was definitely a result of how well you did on your first comp plan. Not really a cap, but it's, you kind of get in there.
Yep.
Well, I think you guys are
that's a
hitting
great.
on it too, right? But like the transparency, like when I was a direct seller, quota carrying, and we would get like the monthly, like leaderboard reports or whatever. Like I couldn't wait for that email. I was like, where am I? Where am I? Where am I? Like, how's everyone else doing? So, I mean, true salespeople love that. The more, the more you see other people succeeding, the more you want to fight to get to the top. Or if you don't, then I guess
most people
probably should go, but
most people get into sales because they love that competitive aspect of it, right? Like they love the fact of it's a team-based event, but it's a team in the sense of next person up, right? It's like you're fighting for that spot, you're fighting for that leaderboard, and it's the competitive edge that really makes it fun. And it's not like I've worked at some organizations where it's like, oh, should we have a leaderboard? Should we have this? And I'm always definitely pro leaderboard, because then you can understand who's doing well and you can replicate that also. Like when I was an AE, I don't think I'm the best AE that was ever out there, but what I did is I could pull from the best AEs and take what they were doing well and put that into my process. And you only get that from understanding what the top AEs are doing and what they're performing at.
Yeah,
100%.
That was the whole point of the sales kickoff. And hopefully we're back to having them again, but was to either congratulate or shame you, depending on where you ended up the previous year, and force you to walk through the lobby of that hotel and answer the question, how did you do last year? 1,000,000 times for 1,000,000 people that asked you. So that's, I think we need to get back to that. A lot of that, I talk to a lot of companies that don't want to do that because they feel like it's unfair to people and they don't want to shine a light on poor performance and so forth. I do. I want to shine.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Yeah. I think it's the trade-off of like, do you want to incentivize successful performance or do you want to protect poor performance? And I think you need to make sure you're focusing on the right things and not protecting the wrong things. And you're highlighting those individuals who are going above and beyond, both on the compensation side, but also on kind of the reward side of highlighting those individuals.
Yeah. I think reflecting back on being an individual contributor, a lot of the roles that I've been in, whether they're a sales leadership title, they're more of a player coach role. I live mainly in the startup world, so you don't have as defined lanes. You tend to wear a lot of different hats. And personally, I like the accountability, especially in the sales culture, that high performance gets rewarded and mediocrity is going to be held accountable to a certain degree. As long as there's support within the organization, everyone's getting that fair opportunity to have that success. From what I've seen in the high performers that I interact with, they want that accountability. They don't want anyone on the team diluting the value of it. And I played sports growing up, and I think about the analogy of, when you're starting in the sports world, right, everyone should get some playing time on the field and whatnot. But I don't compare the sales team in the enterprise world to that. It's very much an elite performing team, and you want to be the best. You want to continue to get better, and you should get rewarded for that, because it does take additional time. It does take additional effort to get there and to continue to stay there. And I'll say, to your point, Ryan, those leaderboards are a lot of fun, because when you're at the top, you got a target on your back. And you got people coming after you. And if it's a healthy sales culture, while it is competitive, it's fun too. It's a lot of fun. And when people are chasing for that top spot time and time again, you start to generate results, and it starts to feel like play. And next thing you know, you're looking at the entire team, and the whole team is hitting, and they're raising the bar of everyone around themselves. And at that point, the comp plans start to become secondary, because everyone's just having a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah. You make a really good point on, and this leads into our topic today on a healthy sales culture. And one of the things we've done here at Airwallex is the fact that we are a truly global company. And being based in EMEA, EMEA has very segmented local payment methods. We have Ideal in the Netherlands, you have Bax Direct Debit, SEPA. But over in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Australia, they have payment methods that, I'm not familiar with and my team isn't familiar with. And so we want to incentivize that cross collaboration between AEs in, APAC and AEs in EMEA. And the way we do that is we actually incentivize a higher commission plan for cross collaboration. So instead of 50-50, it might be 60-60 or 70-70. Airwallex is covering that. So it incentivizes cross collaboration, because we know the fact of, okay, if there's one AE in the UK working on this global deal, we're not going to have as much success of closing this if we had somebody who had that localized expertise. And so I think if you think about a global company, you need to make sure you're thinking about how you incentivize teamwork as well. And not just global, it's important at every company, but that's just how we're doing it.
Yeah. And it makes me think of We're primarily selling into North America, so US, Canada, Mexico, and we'll get to that global stage. But one of the ways that we hit on that same theme, Ryan, is when you're in a 6 to 12 month sales cycle and you have people getting promoted, or you have people changing departments, or you have strategic shifts, you have the opportunity as a sales leader to be a part of account reassignments, or companies that might be on a prospect list that a rep was working for many months, and now they're getting moved to another department, whether it's good or bad. And what do you do with those accounts? So one of the things I've seen that we've done at our current company Path that I'm really proud of with the sales leadership above me is they don't say like do a handoff process. They just say, hey, we'll just pay double on this one. You guys go off and both of you guys work it together, because that historical person built the relationship. They have the trust. The new person's been tasked with owning it moving forward. And they don't want those two people to be competing against each other. They want them to work in harmony. So they both should get a slice of that. And it's just been really cool to see, because I've been in organizations where it hasn't been that way. And getting back to that team, it can start to cause some rifts if you've got people competing for those extra dollars.
That's a great point. In the global organizations, I think the number one thing that, outside of making the right comp plan so that we're double comping, or at least doing 150%, 75, is let's get the policies in place first. Let's get the division of the account lists in place first. It's always the exceptions that cause the drama that we have to solve with comp. So if we get our sales ops house in order first, we probably won't need to throw as much money at it, because people will understand what the rules of engagement are before they go in. I think that's the number one thing. But yeah, the double comping. I mean, if you're going to go take a deal that's in North America and now sell it globally, I think that's worth putting. That's going to require 2 reps effort. You should pay for 2 reps to do it. That may not have been in the budget to begin with, but I think that's absolutely the way they should be looked at.
Yeah.
One thing a company I worked at did that encouraged a lot of collaboration, and as well, that I really liked, was we knew that new reps coming in were much more likely to stay at the organization if they closed a deal in the first 90 days. And so they would pair every new rep with a more senior mentor, and the more senior mentor would get 50% of all their deals for helping them. And so it was great as a senior rep, because you're like, okay, I'm going to get some extra inbounds. I'm going to get some extra, I basically have a free SDR. I'm going to take half the commission, but it also is getting that younger rep trained up so much faster, and hopefully on a faster ramp too. So I really liked that.
I love that idea. I think that's a great way to incentivize the team collaboration aspect. Sorry, Trevor, you were going to say something.
I was going to recognize there was a question a while back from Tom George about just balancing complexity with the right incentives. I think looking at balancing the right incentives with what all of management and finances are concerned with, is just gaming the system, rather, like taking advantage of, because they're just worried about like, oh, I'm going to put my name on this and get paid. And that certainly happens. I think that's really the balance that we need to look at when we're designing the comp plans, is driving the right behavior up to the point where someone's going to take advantage and do the wrong thing. I think that's the threshold that we need to keep a line on. And the global comp splits and everything, that's always ripe for that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it'd be fun to debate too, though, right? Like if you're making less than 5 million a year, you should only have 3 like levers or something. And then like over 5 million, you could, I don't know. I feel like there probably is some kind of benchmark formula, right? I guess you might know, Trevor.
Whenever I would get into a territory dispute, where the company where I had that happen most often, the CRO would say to me, he's like, look, if you work it out, you both can keep your percentages. But if you have to bring it to me to decide, then I'm immediately going to take 25%. And if you don't like my first answer, I'm going to take another 25%. So I don't know if that's a sales incentive or like bickering disincentive, but I'll tell you, it was very effective. We didn't bring any disputes to him.
Yeah, I think hitting on that theme from earlier with alignment and transparency, if you create a good rules of engagement and they're as black and white as they can be, there's always going to be those edge cases, right? And being in a position where you have people reporting up to you, I would say something similar, Trevor, not to that degree, but there wasn't taking a cut of it. But essentially what I said is you two are both adults selling into enterprise 6-figure accounts. Figure out who should and if you can't, like, I'm happy to come in and mediate, but we would revert back typically to the rules of engagement. And what we found over time was that the reps would build such deep relationships with each other that I would never end up hearing about these altercations. Or maybe we would take them out for a team event and people would be giving each other crap about it after in a joking fashion. But if you create that culture, to your point, Ryan, and that sales environment where people can thrive in and they have clarity and alignment, then a lot of those complications that might not be stated on a comp plan can resolve themselves. But I do think, Jess, you make a really good point that the smaller the revenue of the organization, the smaller the team, it should really be some clear up front, like, only a few things should be at play, which is interesting, Trevor, that the data says that it's the opposite of that.
Right.
It's a really interesting point.
I'm not surprised with the data, well, from my personal experience, but I always try to counsel clients away from it. I'm like, if you were going to do, 5% on the monthly ARR and then 10% on the annual, just call it 8 and like, just do everything at 8. So let's just split the difference, or whatever. Cause we didn't even, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but it's like, not only does it maybe disincentivize the reps just because they can't calculate it as easily themselves, but it's also downstream impact on your controller or your accounting team trying to calculate all of this on the back end. So I'm like, by the time, we talk about how many hours that's going to add to their plate every month or however often you're doing payouts, like, what have we really gained?
Right.
Yeah. One of the exercises that I've done is if you have someone outside of the organization and you're thinking about rolling out a new framework, go to that person who has zero frame of reference. They have no bias. They have no understanding of what you're selling, how you're selling it, who you're selling it to, and explain the framework that you're about to roll out. And if they don't get it right away, then you probably still need to continue to simplify it. So that's something that I've done. And sometimes it's a good exercise before rolling something out. And I think, talking about how the economy's changed and how the sales cycles and quota attainments and all of those things have shifted, comp plans have shifted as well, I think. And so the SKOs this year were probably much different than in 2020 or 2021. And the new comp adjustments, anytime they can be proactive and anytime that leadership can come out and say, here's what the data is showing us, here's what historical data looks like, here's what the selling environment looks like, which requires them to be keyed into that sales culture to a certain degree and be understanding of what the reps in the frontline managers are actually dealing with. If they're not on the same page, that is going to end up showing up in a comp plan. And so if you get that buy-in from the group and you work through that framework, you take that proactive approach of saying, here's what we're thinking about rolling out, and you get buy-in, it ends up being a really big trust building and motivating event when you make a comp plan shift. I think early on in my selling days, when I was a individual contributor and I heard about a comp plan, my initial reaction was like one of like, oh no, like what's happening? And I think you can alleviate a lot of those fears by just being open about directionally where you're heading.
I totally agree with that. Even if you don't take the feedback, just bringing your team in to the conversation is going to make they're going to be more receptive to it. Not that you say you're not going to take it, but you know what I mean? No, I totally agree. And I think, John, it was you that said this earlier, just like on our closing, like as we're watching the clock, but like the last thing we wanted to leave people with, right, was like key takeaways and like, how do we help reps in this more challenging environment? And you mentioned, giving that executive support. And I think that is such a like low-hanging fruit thing that companies can do, right? That's not monetary, it's just time and involvement, but having executives come get more involved in deals with reps and lend that, extra touch and give the prospect that extra like warm and fuzzy special feeling. I think that's like a really good point.
Yeah, I think it's one example of what can an organization do to empower someone to be successful outside of the dollars. So how do we help our team win more and more frequently and get more of the big wins and the right wins? And that's one of the things I think that separates, if you're going out and you're just getting a commission or a 1099, I have nothing against them. I've been in those environments. But that's like almost the purest form of performance-based pay, right? Of like, here's a commission model and it's based on XYZ. But if you are in an organization and they support you in other ways, like executive involvement, but also training, development, bringing in people to help educate them on the industry, those are all things that I think create a lot of brand loyalty. And I think in an environment, we hear about the quiet quitting, we hear about the quiet hiring, the quiet this, quiet that. There's all these things that you see on LinkedIn in the world today. But I think organizations have a really big opportunity to create a lot of trust and employee engagement just by extending that offering and saying, we're here to support you, and showing it through action. But yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, I don't think you can underestimate the kind of executive buy-in and the executive support on a lot of these opportunities. Just going as far as supporting the individual contributor on this deal cycle, but also making introductions. One of the things that I'll always hold with me was from a sales training above the line, below the line concept, right? Where you're kind of selling to a below the line contact, and you want to bring in exec leadership to make that relationship with above the line contact. And I can't underestimate like how much that actually does help and impact the deal cycle. It can really accelerate those to closing quarter that might have been pushed out before. And the more that you can support them, and that doesn't take anything but time, right? And it's time from your leadership who are incentivized to help these deals come in.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. The stuff we've talked about today is all relevant. That making sure that we make things attainable. If we draw it back to the rep's perspective, that it be something that actually gets them to go do that extra, whatever, make that extra call, push on the 28th. It's the 28th of the month. Are we closing deals in February? Are they incentivized to close deals in February? They make the same amount February as they are in March. Does March matter as much as April? And you got to dial all these things in ahead of time. So that you have a plan and you're not doing them ad hoc, and you're not pushing on a rep to do something that is incongruent with how they've been motivated financially to do it. Critically important, making sure they understand how they're getting paid. What happens if they get paid in February? Like, what does that do for March's paycheck? That's tools like we sell. And then zooming out, making sure that you understand too that the sales compensation piece is just one spoke of the wheel that as sales leaders we have to have in place. We need to have sales ops running fluidly, the accounts determined, the territories, the rules of engagement, like all of those impediments. Like, let's get those things knocked out so that they can go hit that achievement. They can go get those big paychecks, get everyone making a lot of money, get everyone feeling good. It's an emotional game. Salespeople are emotional creatures, and they are, number one, motivated, and their emotions are dictated by how much money they're making a lot of times, but also just all of the rest of the things that go along with it. You can't throw a great comp plan at a terrible sales organization and expect good results. It's not going to work. It's just one piece of the pie.
Yeah. Well, this is a great conversation. I think, yeah, perfect. I was gonna say, I think Angelica's going to close us out.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Jessica, for moderating, John, Trevor, and Ryan for your awesome insights today. As a quick reminder to everyone watching, the recording, key takeaways, along with all the articles and blog posts will be made available on the MSP previous event page before the end of the day. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you at the next event. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.